Right, so the first thing I do is clear this roof of all the stuff which caused that. Sack that. Now then, welcome to the video. It's been an absolute glorious day today. It's Easter time. Well, it's Good Friday actually. And the weather is glorious. It's going to be nice tomorrow as well, but unfortunately, towards Monday, it's going to get worse. Typical English weather, nice day, then a rainy day. Not to worry, in this week's video, what we're going to be doing is talking about painting, especially our roof. And there's absolutely nothing that can go wrong doing that, because it's a right easy job, isn't it? So come along for the ride, where me, paint Narrowboat Laura's roof. Let's crack on. I'm not used to seeing my chin. Anyway, it's a beautiful day here, so getting out away from that disaster that happened in the bedroom, we decided it's possibly a good idea if I start messing about with the roof, maybe maintaining that a bit. I started it last year and the weather caught up with me, and anyway, I got busy and it all went boobs up. But anyway, so what I'm thinking about doing today is just priming up a few little bits of bare metal, cleaning it all up, priming it up, getting it ready for an undercoat and a gloss. I'm not going to use anything fancy or any the boat paint that we've got that come with the boat. We're just going to use that. It seems to have done a good enough job over the years. Possibly the prep wasn't great for the last lot of roof painting, but anyway, we're going to give it a go and see what we can do. Right, so the first thing I do is clear this roof of all the stuff, get all that out of the way, so I can get to bits like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape off any loose lumps, give it a rub down to feather it in, treat it with like a Q-rust type stuff, and then it's going to have a primer. And then, maybe not today because it won't dry in time, but over the next couple of days I'll give it a coat of undercoat, maybe 2 or 3 coats of undercoat. I'm just going to use a roller, but I'll go through the list of the tools I'm going to use in a bit. So here's all the tools I'm going to be using. Obviously I'm not going to be using the coffee pot or the bag of salad leaf, but yeah, so I've got a scraper here that's going to be used to scrape off those big lumps. I've also got this old thing, which is a Scarston. I love old tools. It's a really nice piece of kit, that, and it's lasted well over the years. It came with the boat, so I'm going to keep using that because I do love it. The other thing I'm going to got is spare blades for the big scraper. I've got 40 grit and 100 grit sandpaper. What I'm going to do is, I think the pitting that's on the rust on the roof now will serve enough of a profile so the paint adheres properly. What people tend to do is they shine up the metal really shiny, as smooth as you can get it, and that's not what you want. You want a little bit of pitting on it so that the paint has something to adhere to. It gets right in there. So as for application, I've got a brush. I'm hoping I don't need to use that, but I'm going to use this foam roller here. I'm not bothered about the finish. The rougher the better, really, because we want to be stepping on and off it. And if you have a nice smooth surface and it's wet, it's like an ice rink. Last of all, I've got some primer and I've got some boat paint, and I do have some of this Q-rust stuff, which I'm going to put on first. It takes about 15 minutes to go off, and then I can obviously paint straight over it with the primer. Maybe 2 coats of primer. I might do 1 coat on the areas that have been scraped off and treated, and then 1 full coat over the whole entire roof, just to possibly give it a bit more of a thickness of coating, so you know, looks a bit more uniform. And then that I've also got this Rylard paint that's original used on this boat. It seems to have done all right, so I'm going to keep using that for now on the roof. The sides I'm going to use a different paint, but that's for a later date. I've also got the top coat colour for that. It's like a battleship grey. So anyway, let's crack on. Right, so that's the roof cleared off, but as you can see, it's a bit of a mess. It's got, trouble is with putting things on top of the roof there, is it stays damp. Seems to be an issue that we were thinking originally of putting gluing on solar panels, and then we saw some footage of someone taking them off and thought, oh, we're not going to do that because it actually keeps the paint wet all the time and it just peels it off. You can just see here and there, if I rub on that, it actually comes off. It's lumpy and bumpy, it's actually lifted. So what we're going to have to do is try and keep things off the roof as much as possible. Anyway, I'm going to sweep it off, give it a wash down, and then I can start. Sack that, I'm going to scrape off all the rough bits and then give it a clean off and a wash down afterwards. One thing that you mustn't do when you're on the cut is contaminate the canal. Well, you've got to do as little as possible. So I've just collected every bit that I've scraped off the roof into this, and then it'll go in the bin. That way it's not getting wanged in the canal. And that's the roof scraped off and cleared up. I've got to take that. He's not in the best of moods. He's chasing off all the young uns. Aren't you, mate? I think it's he. How do you tell the difference? Anyway, as I was saying, so I've got to take that vent off. It's got a light in the top. We usually cover that up with a plate, but I think we're going to have to do something different because it's creating rust patches around. So that's something we're going to either mend so that it doesn't leak, or put some tape over, or we could replace it with a mushroom vent if we wanted. I've got an idea that what I might do is put a computer fan in the top of there that sucks air out, or maybe sucks air in. Anyway, that's another job on the list. Gotta wash it all down now and then treat it. Okay, so I've treated all the rust spots with the Q-Rust stuff, and although time is getting on a bit now because unfortunately I had a little bit of an injury, managed to slip off the side of that gunnel there and shave most of the skin off my shin on that. Now, at this point in the video, I'd like to take the opportunity to talk about first aid boxes on narrowboats. Have you... my fucking hand. Oh. Oh, my hand. Bashed me under the table. Oh. I'll start that one again. Smash me hand, love.
Thomas.
Thank you. Now, at this point of the video, I'd like to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about first aid on narrowboats and first aid boxes in particular, because with what I'd managed to do, I needed one. Now, I must stress, this accident was entirely my fault. I overstretched. I was wearing the wrong footwear. I was wearing Crocs, not boots. And that culminated with me slipping off the side of the boat and leaving a big chunk of my shin on a wooden platform that we were using to get on and off the boat. Now, we didn't have any antiseptic cream, so Debbie had to resort to using hot water with salt in it, which was not the most pleasant experience I've ever had. In fact, it was excruciatingly painful. It was very deep. It still looks nasty now, so I'm not going to show it until it's fully healed, which will be hopefully in a couple of weeks' time. One thing that we didn't have was plasters big enough to cover the cut. Even if we'd have had a basic first aid kit, we wouldn't have had big enough plasters. It was around about that long, which is probably 4 or 5 inches long, the actual cut in the leg, and it was very deep and it bled quite profusely. After a couple of days I ended up with an infection, and once again I tripped off to the hospital to get some help from them and ended up with antibiotics, which I took for 4 to 6 weeks. And then after that I had antiseptic cream, which I've put on for the past 2 weeks. That's come to an end now, so I don't need any more of that. So what I'd like to know is, what first aid kit do you have on your boat? If you have a boat, or even if you have a camper van or a cabin in the woods. Let me know what you think's the best one to get. I know we're going to have to put a few extra bits in, like some really long patches, because I'm not really the, well, I'm pretty clumsy, to be honest. One thing I am glad of is that my mum wasn't there when it happened, because she'd have got the scrubbing brush out and give it a thorough clean. Didn't like that when I was a kid, and I wouldn't like it now. It does got to show that even though I'm quite an experienced builder, I've 30 odd plus years, and I've 3 or 4 years on the boat now. Three and a bit years on the boat now. 3 years on the boat now.
2020. No, it'll be 3 years this July.
Even though I've 2 and a bit years of scrabbling around on this boat, both sides, accidents still happen. But you'll not hear any of that over the rattle of cutlery anyway. So even though I've got a couple of years of experience on a boat, accidents still happen. And maybe I need to choose my footwear more carefully and try not to overstretch. As well, I'm not as young as I used to was. Things like that never used to bother me. I could jump around, and yeah, now jumping around is not my thing. All in all, I've just got to be a little bit more careful. Or as my mate Dave from Narrowboat Changing Pace said, some anti-slip paint. So anyway, what I'm going to do now is, because I'm not that bothered about it curing to exact times and everything like that, I'm going to use some of this primer just on the spots I've done with the rust treatment, and just coat it all up so it's sealed in and at least doing its job. And then tomorrow I'll wash everything down correctly again and reapply some more primer, ready for the undercoat. Here we are, we're just putting the primer coat on, and what I'm doing is, I don't know if you can see that there, but there's like a mottled effect, so I'm dabbing it like this, and what that does is it sort of camouflages that rough edge that you get all the way down there. Just like that. There we go, she's all done. Oh, and as you can see here, in this section here, it's quite, well, there's quite a lot of ridges. There's one particular pronounced one there, but if I rub all this down, it'd smooth off this bit here and start to hide that a bit more, and you could actually build up coats to get rid of that completely. My old coach painting mate used to make me do loads of that. There we go. We'll come back tomorrow and we'll give it a rub down, a wash down, and a coat of primer. There we are, she's all primered up. I gave her a wash down, a bit of a rub down in bits of places, and then gave her a coat. And it was a couple of days ago that I did the actual first prep bit, because a little accident happened. Yeah, I was stepping over from that side of the gunnels there onto there, and I slipped off and caught my shin on there, which caused that. Yeah, it wasn't the most pleasant experience I've ever had, but I'm on the mend. So we're a week on from when we last touched this roof, and that seems to have held up pretty well. There's no misses or grins or anything like that. The next bit is we're going to move all that stuff that's on there out of the way. What we are going to have to do is not put things on the roof, because I have noticed where this antenna is, it's actually soft underneath there. Same with around that, it's actually encouraged moisture and damp, which has accelerated a bit of the corrosion. So we're going to have to look into that and change the way we do that. I'm thinking about putting a mushroom vent there instead of the other one that we had on. We'll see what that comes of that eventually. Right, so anyway, I've got to clear this roof. Pesky swans there. Tried to peck at me while I was outside at boat. No more food for you two. There we go, all rubbed down. Just got to sweep her off, give her a wash, and then she's ready for the rust treatment and the primer. I've also got to get a little bit of sealant in there around the chimney so that that doesn't leak in. Mrs. made it a bit more difficult by lighting the fire while I was doing it, and swans didn't help by trying to attack me while I was on that side at boat. They've run off there now, they're on the way back. I'm a clumsy oaf, me, ain't I? Well, after that couple of days of bright weather, the rain came in and the cold, so it scuppered all the rest of the work on the roof. So it sort of stopped, but as you can see, this weather's getting nicer, so we can start again fairly soon. And I've not been as idle as you might think, as you'll see in next time's video. Here's a sneaky peek, and hopefully that should theoretically give us a working gas fridge again. Oh, what could go wrong? Knowing me, everything. Anyway, if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and we hope you enjoyed. And if you did enjoy it, remember to give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more, and remember, click that little bell icon and YouTube will either you next time I release one. That's everything on my list for today. I reckon we'll call it a draw for this one. Till next time.